Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to the webinar on should I invest in a drone for my business. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation if you'd just like to type them in the question box, and we will answer them either through the presentation or we will have time at the end of the presentation just to answer any questions that are left over that you've sent in. So I am joined in our Liverpool office with Chris Thompson from Sensefly. Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
And Matthew Greaves from the Drone Pilots Academy.
Good morning, everybody.
So we will now make a start on the presentation. So I'm Richard Gorshwin. I am the Business Area Manager for our Mapping and GIS division within KOREC. I have been with the company for 18 years now, and I specialise in all of our mapping technologies, including our drone systems. So the question we set is, should I invest in a drone for my business? Well, this is a phrase, a quote that we use quite a lot. The most dangerous phrase in the language is, we've always done it that way. The only constant in technology industry is change. And this is very relevant, that if as a business you stand still and don't look at new technologies and new ways of undertaking your work, you will find that you do go behind the competition. I guarantee that work that you price for, that people will be looking at drones to do that kind of work on a regular basis. So hopefully we can inform you today on how bringing a drone into your business can really bring returns on investments and help you move forward with any work that you carry out. This is a case study that we did with Geraint Thomas at Panorama about 18 months ago. And I just like this quote because, as he said, it's like buying a business in a box. We went through this whole process with Geraint, and there is a timeline of what it actually took for him from purchasing the drone to going through all of his CAA training and starting to earn money within 8 weeks of that initial purchase. And Geraint went on to have a very successful business from using an EB within that, from never ever touching a drone before he came to us. So drones can most certainly be used for mapping and surveying applications. We would always say it's there to complement your business. We wouldn't see it as a replacement for existing technologies that you're using, but it's there to enhance your business and be able to look at different applications and allow you to gather data quicker and more efficiently and get better results at the end of it. So we would always describe it as another tool in the box to help you work smarter. What we see is the 3 key benefits for surveying using a drone revolve around efficiency, safety, and the consistent accuracy of data. So if you imagine just being out on a site, the amount of area that we can cover in such a short time with a drone makes it very efficient for being out on site and capturing that data, rather than having to walk around the site and manually survey everything that you need to get for the data capture. From a safety point of view,
the professional
being remote from that site and not having boots on ground, if you're working in a quarry or a dangerous environment, it is far safer to undertake that data capture if you're off site and just using a drone to fly over. And just the consistent accuracy of data. You're not relying on a surveyor picking up everything on site. If he's missed something, do you really need to go back to site to capture that information? The picture really does tell 1,000 words, and you have all of that information available to you for when you need it. And just the advantages of using a professional drone system rather than going down to your local hobbyist or toy shop to purchase a system. You know, all of the SenseFly systems are run very autonomously, very simple to use, and that really does put some quality control on the data that you're going to capture. You're not relying on manual flying to make sure that you cover the whole area of sight. It's very much designed for the job in hand, and the endurance of the system, so we can fly up to 90 minutes now with the EBX. So it can last in the air far longer than some of the hobbyist systems that are out on the market. To go with that, we have special sensors on board. So for specific applications around thermal or multispectral, we can accommodate
definition.
And then just generating professional outputs that your clients require as a business. And the results really are outstanding. You will see some data today that really is just so impressive, and it can really enhance the business that you provide. So how KOREC became involved in drones originally was Northern Ireland Forestry actually had a fire in one of their forests, and they came to us originally for some handheld GPS units to try and go and map the burn within that forest. We estimated it was going to take around about 6 weeks to be able to go and capture that data with handheld GPS, and there wasn't really any quality control around making sure that they had everywhere covered. That is when we began to speak to SenseFly, and we found that providing a drone as an option for Northern Ireland Forestry to capture this data proved far more efficient than the traditional methods of using handheld GPS. So all of that data was captured, processed, and in their ArcGIS system within 2 days. So it took 10% of the time that it would have taken with traditional methods. So this is where you can see that efficiencies really can be gained from using a drone over traditional surveying methods. That original survey with Northern Ireland Forestry was done with the Swinglet cam that was released in 2010, and it was the original system that SenseFly brought to market to reinvent how people started to map and survey the world around them. That was shortly followed by the revolution that really is the EB. The EB is still available to this day in that form, and it is the world's most used mapping drone that there is out there. SenseFly have always tried to revolutionize the product and keep it well ahead of the market. And in 2014, we introduced RTK GPS onto the EB, which meant that we were getting survey grade accuracies without the need for any ground control to be put in on site, which again just made efficiencies far greater on site than had been previously allowed. And then in 2016, the EB got a whole refresh with the EB Plus system, which brought with it RTK and PPK on demand, and introduced the new SenseFly Soda camera, which was optimized for these drone applications, giving really high resolution information in a very small compact unit that allowed the drone to fly for up to 59 minutes, which again was just revolutionizing what the drone space had seen before. So that now brings us up to current day and the current iteration of the EB. So I'm now going to hand you over to Chris Thompson from SenseFly, who is going to talk you through the new EBX system.
Thank you, Richard. Hello, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Chris Thompson. I'm the Regional Manager for Europe, Middle East, India, and Africa for SenseFly. I've been with SenseFly for about 5.5 years. and I'm in direct contact and collaboration with KOREC, who's our distributor, obviously for UK and Ireland. So I'm going to crack on with, as Richard mentioned, the new system that is our flagship product, the EBX. So what I'm basically going to speak about today are 6 main topics. As Richard mentioned, Sensefly aims to revolutionize whichever products it releases. It aims to be ahead of the market. It aims to give our clients the ability to be able to do surveying jobs, mapping jobs, remote sensing jobs to the best of their abilities and to maximize those potentials. So with that in mind, we've gone on 6 different applications or additions to the new system, which have allowed us again to revolutionize this product for our clients. So the first thing, and probably the most important thing when it comes to data acquisition, is the data. So the camera that the drone is carrying on board. And up until the EB Plus, we were using off-the-shelf cameras, Sony's, and SODA, which, as Richard mentioned, came with the EB Plus, standing for a sensor optimized for drone application, was the first sensor that we developed in-house and was really geared and designed to be able to maximize those results for our users. So one of the first revolutionary cameras we've released with the EBX uses the SODA, the camera we had on the EB Plus, but in a completely different method. It's basically on a gimbal, which allows the system to take not only nadir images, but also oblique. So the question we ask ourselves always with a fixed wing technology is, or the one main probably disadvantage compared to quadcopters, is fixed wing allows you to cover huge amounts of areas, but in an urban environment or when there's plenty of data that's needed to be acquired, sometimes the data on the side of buildings, so where that oblique imagery really is necessary, is sacrificed, because conventionally a fixed wing is only taking one picture, which is nadir, and therefore sacrifices those images. So we went to the drawing board to try and bring a system that not only allows you to map huge amounts of area in one flight, but then also will give you that complementary data which a quadcopter can give. So this is the revolutionary Sensefly SODA 3D, which, as I said, takes 3 images now, which include 2 oblique, which allow you to acquire the data on the side of facades, or even if you want to map the side of a cliff, you can now do that with fixed wing. So you're getting both advantages of a quad and a fixed wing. The other advantage there, if you're doing general mapping, is you can cover 3 times the area in question, because it's taking its image in question is taking a 3 times larger area than the conventional SODA. So what this means, and fundamentally for a fixed wing, is the area that you can cover. We'll go into more detail as to the endurance extension that Sensefly has offered now in its systems, but with the endurance extension with the Sensefly SODA 3D, in one flight you can now cover up to 5 square kilometers in one flight. That truly is impressive. So here's an example of what can be acquired when 3D data is acquired with SODA 3D, and it's making those 3D models really possible. You can see on the left-hand side there, that's a picture of a normal fixed wing with a fixed payload, which is taking those nadir images, and tons of data is missing on the side of the buildings. And then we compare it to the right there, which is completely different. It's completely filled out. It's got data on all of the sides of the buildings, and you've got really an impressive 3D point cloud. So the Sensefly SODA 3D is really being designed for our users that really need to have these impressive and large outputs on the 3D side of things. There's an example there again. If you would have taken that image with a normal fixed wing with the fixed payload, you probably would have had complete blackness on the sides there. So that really shows the extent of what the SODA 3D can do for really fulfilling those requirements when it comes to 3D outputs. And again, just a comparison of the normal SODA, which we still have, but comparing it and truly showing why we released this product, and we listened to our clients and their needs, and this was certainly one of them. It was one that would be able to help them in filling in these blanks and these voids on the 3D outputs, and you can see how much more data is acquired when you have that nadir and oblique capture. And finally, just one, again, impressive 3D output, a 3D mesh of a project we did in Switzerland, where we're based. And again, with a quad that would probably take you 10 times longer. You're probably looking at 3 or 4 days of being on the field. There, you're looking at 1 or 2 flights to be able to acquire that, or even 1, weather permitting. So that really shows the revolutionary aspect of this SODA 3D. So the second camera we released was the Area X, which is what you'd say is the big brother of the normal SODA. So looks similar, but is bigger, is higher in resolution, and is basically an upgrade on the normal SODA, which allows our clients which are looking for the orthomosaic outputs side of drone data acquisition. So you have an APS-C sensor there, 24 megapixel compared to the 20 on the normal SODA, with a global shutter. And examples compared to maybe the professional cameras that you're used to on the market are the DSLRs with APS-Cs or the Nikon D500. So, really a revolutionary camera, again, to get sharper, more detailed definition in the images, which we'll see now. So again, this is a camera geared towards surveyors which are really looking for those orthomosaic 2D outputs, and it really gives excellent definition. We can see there a really good example, again, a comparison of SenseFly SODA, our initial camera, compared to now the Area X at 5 centimeters per pixel. You can see on the right there that the detail on the side of the roof and in general, the image quality is far superior. The third camera we released, which again, in my opinion, is really revolutionary in a data acquisition sense, was a dual sensor. So we basically, again, took our normal SODA, our SODA from the EB Plus, and we paired it with a thermal camera, a FLIR thermal camera. What this allows is the system to take 2 images at once. So you're basically then allowed to get that RGB, but also thermal data. Most impressively, that then allows you to overlay the RGB data and obviously the accuracy of that data onto the thermal image, and you can now have georeferenced thermal data, which again is truly revolutionary. And couple that with a fixed wing aspect, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 square kilometers of data and being able to use the thermal aspects of that, which again allows our clients a whole new means of being able to map. So there's a good example of what has been done with the RGB overlay, with the 3D model overlaid with the thermal data. And again, it is really impressive. So that's the cameras. I didn't go too much into detail on the ag side, but we do have a Parrot Sequoia and MicaSense Red Edge again for agricultural mapping. But the 3 cameras there, on a surveying GIS level are the 3 ones we released with EBX. And as I said, when it comes to drones, the drone's great and offers many advantages, but it really is about the data that's been acquired, and that's why we released these 3 amazing cameras. So another aspect to the system, as Rich mentioned, when we released the EB Plus, it was the first time we released a drone which was able to fly up to 59 minutes, which again, compared to a quad, which traditionally is flying at 25, 30 minutes max, really allows you to do a lot more in the mapping jobs. So what we launched with the EBX was again an upgrade on that in terms of the time that the system could fly, and obviously, which means the data and the amount of data that our clients can acquire in one flight or one afternoon. So we now have the option of an endurance extension, which allows you to push that 59 minutes up to 90 minutes. And that's camera dependent. So I'd say 90 minutes is with the SODA, the classic SODA, which is obviously our lighter payload. And for those other cameras, which, the revolutionary, slightly heavier ones, you're probably looking at about 70 minutes. But again, as I said, 70 minutes with the SODA 3D, you're mapping up to 5 square kilometers. So something we'll go into more detail in the slide today is the big question, and something that fixed wing is geared towards is EV loss or BV loss missions. And so this is where it's perfect for those larger missions where you can then push the system to its limits, and you're really using the system what it's been designed for. And that traditionally is the thing that really maybe hinders our clients slightly, is regulation. But as that starts to develop and continues to develop greatly, especially in the likes of the UK and Ireland, we're seeing our clients able to really maximize their potential with our system. Another aspect that we added to the new system, and again, something we listened to on our clients when they told us what they'd like to see in the new system, is a steep landing. So obviously the system of a fixed wing, EB fixed wing, flies linearly. It lands like a plane. Obviously that means that sometimes you need a good amount of runway, about 650 feet, 200 meters. So what we aim to do for those areas where people had not necessarily that amount of space to be able to land, a means of the drone being able to reduce that landing path. So we brought in steep landing, which basically completely changes the angle on which the drone is landing. And so instead of starting its descent at that 200 meters, it's continuing and then starting its descent from about 80 meters from home point, which means it's flying, again, very steep, but able to reduce the landing path length by 2/3, which again really gives our clients good amount of options when they're flying EBXs. RTK PPK upgrade is of course still there. Again, that was a revolutionary aspect on EB+. One thing to mention of our systems is that you don't have to buy a system that's upgraded. You can easily purchase an EBX that's not activated. You get 1 month free trial to be able to use that activation, which a lot of our users do so, to be able to see what it can provide. And most of the time, once they've used that free month, they then look to upgrade the system. Luckily, the system, the hardware itself is fully abled once you get the system, whether it's upgraded or not. And simply then you have to speak to your local distributor, say KOREC, and they will do a software upgrade, and you can do that basically at home through the Emotion software. So that then allows you to have a fully upgraded system without needing to send it back to your distributors. So again, fixed wing, when it comes to land of our systems, is that you need to be able to use that activation all over the world. Mapping and landing in extreme environments, whether that be sand or grass, and they will do a software landing in all areas. So something we focused on with the X was to really have a new ruggedized underbody, which is obviously the part of the drone which takes the impact when the system is landing. So now the material that's used is very similar to Samsonite. So again, it can take hundreds of landings, which allow you to land the system in most areas, and allows you to then do more landings than maybe was conventionally possible with our old systems. So it's a new, tougher system, which again allows to protect a lot more the drone when you're landing. Another thing we heard, and this is really an important aspect when it comes to any drone on the market, whether it be fixed wing or quad, VTOL or non-VTOL, is the repair concept. Realistically speaking, drones are flying systems with moving parts, and there will be times where the system might need to be repaired, might need to be serviced, but the most important thing for SenseFly and the most important thing for our clients is being operational. You don't want to have a case where you're in the middle of a project and then you have to have a 3 or 4 week delay because of repair needs. So we basically modularize our system, which means it's split into 3 or 4 main parts, or 5 with the wings, which then allow basically the local distributors, so KOREC, for example, to be able to do a repair in a matter of minutes as opposed to a matter of weeks. So that then allows our clients to have a really fast turnaround, and allows them to stay operational, and allows them to complete their projects on time. And that was something that we really wanted to bring, which I think is a real game changer compared to most competitors on the market. So whenever we release a product, we obviously put it through hefty testing before we release anything onto the market. And we're very lucky in the sense that we have global distribution from all over the world, global clients. And so before launching the EBX, we basically put this over several months through different types of testing over the stages of development. So whether that be in the sands and sun of Dubai, or the wetness of Asia, or even in the sunny field of Switzerland, we put that system through its paces in all different scenarios, in all different environments, in all different weathers, to be able to allow us to foresee any potential problems that might arise given environments which when you just test in Switzerland, you can't predict. So that's something we changed for the launch of EVX, was to really push or to take advantage of our dealer and client network to be able to maximize our beta stage. And there's just a good quote there to finish off. I immediately felt comfortable flying the EVX, and the Senselite AirEX is a phenomenal mapping camera. As for that material on the body, I can't believe how strong that stuff is. Okay, so that's me, and I'm going to leave you now with Matthew from Drone Pilot Academy.
Thank you very much, Chris. So hopefully what you've just heard there from both Richard and Chris has whetted your appetite for operating drones. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about legislation and training requirements here in the UK if you want to fly commercially. Remember, if you've got any questions at all, please type them in and we'll try and answer them for you on today's webinar. So what I'm going to be talking about really, as I say, is the steps that you need to go through to be a safe and legal drone pilot. So unfortunately, it's not just as simple as getting your drone, getting it out of the box and throwing it up in the air. There are quite a lot of things that you need to know. So first of all, if you are going to be operating a drone as part of your business, then you need what's called a permit for commercial operation. These are granted by the Civil Aviation Authority. That allows you to fly and is a proof that your processes are safe. You also need to have specific public liability insurance compliant with sort of aviation regulation, and you've got to have a limit of at least £750,000 public liability for that. Finally, this has just come in, and actually the law comes into force on the 30th of this month. You need to register your company or yourself, depending on how you've set yourself up, as a drone operator, and you must label your drones. If after the 30th you're flying a drone and it's not labeled, I'm afraid you're breaking the law. So very quickly, some of you, this will probably be a recap, but for those others, it'll probably be brand new. Normally, you have to keep your drone in sight, operating what we call within visual line of sight. I will talk a little bit later about an exemption that you can get that will allow you to fly further and will maximize the capabilities of the EVX. Next one is you are not allowed to fly more than 400 feet, which is about 120 meters above the surface. Main reason for that is manned aviation. We want to try and avoid that. And generally they will come as low as 500 feet, but we still have to maintain a good lookout and make sure that there's nothing that we're going to collide into. Next up is we're not allowed to fly any closer than 50 meters to people. So we can fly over their heads as long as we're still moving, but we mustn't get within 50 meters of them. Same with buildings, we've got to keep away from them. The exemption to this, and with people, is if they are under the control of the remote pilot. So they're there for the purpose of the flight, or we've been and engaged with them beforehand to let them know what's happening. We're also not allowed to fly closer than 150 meters to crowds of people, and a crowd is defined as being more than 1,000 people. We're never allowed to fly directly over their heads. I suspect, though, for the kind of applications that we're looking at using the drones for in our businesses, that probably will never be an issue. Finally, we're not allowed to fly in a flight restriction zone around an airport. This isn't every single airfield that there is out there. This is typically military air bases or the types of airports that you'll go on holiday on a jet from. And we're not allowed within 5 kilometers of the end of the runway. And this is where aviation gets interesting, either 2 or 2.5 nautical miles from the center of the runway. We can get permission to operate in there if we've got a job, and we have to get that from the air traffic control at that airfield usually. Finally, and this is the new bit of legislation that comes into force from the 30th of November, so the end of this month. There's a whole drone registration scheme, and this applies equally to hobby pilots as well as those that are operating under a permit for commercial operation. So you must register as a drone operator. If it's the company that operates the drone, then the company must operate. You have to pay £9 for that. If you have a PFCO and are flying under a PFCO, then you don't need to take an online competency test. However, my counsel would probably be that it's worth doing that anyway. It's free and will probably save you a lot of hassle if you do get stopped or questioned about what you're doing. If you can just produce a number, people are more likely to leave you alone than saying you've got an exemption and then having to demonstrate that. You must also mark all drones that you fly with the operator ID from the 30th of November. If you're operating a drone that doesn't have the operator ID on it, then I'm afraid from then you will be breaking the law. I know that's quite complicated. If there are any questions on that, please email them through and we'll get an individual response back to you. As I already mentioned, with a standard PFCO, you have to keep your drone in sight at all times. That is defined as up to 500 meters, or the point at which you can't see it anymore. With the EBX, with it being a relatively large aircraft, so long as your eyesight's okay, it is fairly easily spottable out to that ½ kilometre route. But as Chris mentioned, the EBX is capable of significant flight times, and in order to be able to maximise that, we ideally want to be able to fly further. Well, Drone Pilot Academy can assist you in an application for what's called extended visual line of sight. So this is where the person who's operating the drone can no longer see it, but using a team of observers and spotters, we can actually allow you and get you an exemption that will allow you to fly that up to 1,500 meters from the operator. I have got a slide in a minute which kind of just illustrates the difference in the size of areas. The advantages to doing this is that you can cover much larger areas in a single flight. So instead of packing down, moving, and then taking off again, you can actually cover much bigger areas from a single takeoff and landing point. And the other thing is, for sort of corridor missions, it's much easier to operate and cover the ground much more rapidly without having to relocate yourself to different takeoff and landing points along your corridor. So here's a screenshot from the motion software that you get as standard with the EBX. This is just an illustration. So in the middle of the screen there, you've kind of got a donut, and that shows the 500-meter radius from the center point in the middle. This is for a standard visual line of sight flight and shows you the area that you can cover. This is just using a standard SODA camera at 60% lateral overlap and 75% longitudinal overlap. You can see with that we can cover about 30 hectares at a time, and the flight time for that's just over 15 minutes. On the next slide, this illustrates what you can get with your extended visual line of sight. So in the middle is, and then we've got the donut again. So from the center point to the inner ring of the donut is 1,500 meters. And you can see from that we're covering very nearly 500 hectares from a single takeoff and landing point. You'll notice that the flight time for this is approximately 2.5 hours. Again, this is with the standard SODA camera and the overlaps that I mentioned before. If you want to go or are thinking about an EV loss application, then I'm afraid it's not something that you can immediately just get qualified and then go and start doing. we do need to be able to demonstrate to the Civil Aviation Authority that you've got quite a significant amount of flying experience and a significant amount of experience of operating the drone commercially. As part of the application and the granting of the exemption, we have to demonstrate that we can or you can reduce the risk of flying further away from the remote pilot. So how are you going to communicate and can the drone communicate with the command station? Good news is with the EBX that 1500 meters is no issue whatsoever given sort of standard terrain. We have to be satisfied, or the CAA will have to be satisfied that we know that the drone is doing what we've told it to do. And finally, we need to make sure that the drone isn't going to collide with either anything ground obstruction or other air users. So we have to put in place systems and processes to make sure that we're mitigating those risks. If you do want to know more, we are running an OSC course in January up in Barnsley. And if you want some kind of one-on-one advice, then we can also provide some consultancy around extended visual line of sight and how to go about securing that, and we can help you secure that from the CAA. Finally, just some pretty pictures of an EB. I'll hand back to Richard.
Thanks, Matthew. So you've seen what the EB is capable for as a system. You've seen how you can operate safely within the regulations. What I'd like to finish with is just how you can produce results and deliver data to your
own insight operating what we call.
As KOREC, we have a software development division called KOREC that produce a range of software and solutions around mobile data capture, but also we have a hosting and processing offering as well. We have a solution called KPortal, which is a cloud-based application which easily allows you to upload drone data into there and be able to share that data with clients without them needing any high-end PC hardware or anything like that, or expensive software to be able to view the drone data. It is a case of logging on to any web browser, whether that be on a desktop PC, on a laptop, even on a tablet or an iPad. And it certainly adds value to the service that you're offering from surveying with a drone, that your end clients can view that data easily and be able to interrogate information out of it as well. So what we can do is log into the system and we can show on screen where the flights have been carried out and what data has been captured. And then if we click on one of those points, we can then load in the high resolution aerial imagery of what the EB has captured. And you can see there that is overlaid on top of OS data so that you can see exactly where it sits in real world and the data that you've captured. And you can zoom in on that and look at the imagery and any information that you need to glean from that image. As well as capturing the orthomosaics, the EB is producing 3D point cloud data from exactly the same information. So it's turning pixels in the image into a 3D point in real world environments. So again, normally you would need a very high-end PC to be able to view this, but just from clicking on the information within KPortal, you can then go and view that again in an online browser and allow you to scroll around and view that. So that was some quarry information that we had captured a while ago that can just be viewed and scrolled around, and you can really start to get a feeling for that site and start to measure information within that. So very simply, just by running your cursor across the ground, we can easily create cross sections, start to do volume calculations, and give you that real-time information of what materials are on site and what needs to be blasted. And also we can do things like just clicking on 2 points within the model, and it'll give us a very simple difference in height. So again, if you've got data that a client just needs to interrogate and get some measurements from, this is really simple to do without the need of any extra investment from a hardware and software point of view. So extremely simple to carry out. And one thing I thought I'd finish the webinar with is this is one of our clients' PDS surveys down in South Wales. And this is some data captured with the EBX, with the Soda 3D that Lee Husk captured a few weeks ago. So this is 4 individual 30-minute flights that have been merged together to capture one whole model. Lee,
we're not allowed to fly
data that he produces with his EB. Traditionally, he's a land surveyor. This has expanded into producing data with drones, and you can just see the quality of this information that is producing with the system, and he's able to produce these fly-throughs to give to clients, and it really gives them a feel for sites and then development work that they're trying to achieve on the back of this. But this is just very simple to produce and give you this really high resolution quality of results. So that's just a feeling for the data that you can capture and how you can produce results from it afterwards. So just in summary on the webinar, so drones can certainly be a very sound investment for your business, and returns on investment can be realized very quickly. From that original slide back at the beginning of the presentation, if you have absolutely no experience from a drone perspective, from 8 weeks from that investment, you can be earning money and getting returns on that investment. Yes, there are regulations that you need to buy to, but hopefully you can realize from Matthew's part of the presentation that we really have the experts on hand to guide you through that process and make you operate safely and legally as far as the regulations are concerned. The EB is by far the leading fixed-wing drone on the market for very good reason. Just how simple it is to use, how easy it is to get those results, and also the quality of the data that it really is producing. And now we have the offering of the extended visual line of sight. It means you can capture more data faster, more efficiently, which means that you're making more money on those projects as you go along and do them. And you can see that just from those last few slides, we definitely do have the options to help you deliver that data easily to your clients and help bring a value add to the services that you are offering. So just finally, we do have an exclusive offer for everybody who's attended the webinar. This is a significant saving on a brand new EBX system. We will be emailing this offer out to all of you today. The offer is on for the next 2 weeks until the end of November. And my contact details will be at the end of the webinar, just in case you want to take us up on that offer. As I say, it is a significant saving on the cost of the system. So we do have a question come in. So how does the method of collection compare to LiDAR? Chris, do you want to take that one?
I'm happy to chip in.
Oh, Matthew, go on.
Okay, I'll take this one. LiDAR generally, you need a much larger aircraft to be able to carry the sensors. So typically at the minute, those tend to be attached to the bottom of large multi-rotors. The main difference in the kind of data collection method, it's all flown usually automatically. The difference in the data is usually the number of points that you get per square meter on the ground. With LiDAR, you tend to get thousands and thousands, whereas with photogrammetry, you tend to get hundreds. A lot depends on, obviously, the value of that depends on what you're going to be doing with the data at the end of the day. The other thing is LiDAR can be better at penetrating heavily vegetated sites, and also for creating point clouds from structures that are sort of very complex, like electricity towers and things like that, where photogrammetry is less good at getting those results. I think the other thing to mention as well is probably the cost. LiDAR sensors, you're looking at probably the thick end of somewhere between 80 and 100,000 pounds, plus then the drone to attach it to, whereas photogrammetry is significantly cheaper than that.
And a quick question on the weight. Obviously, Sensefly, we don't have LiDAR purely because the systems tend to be too heavy for our fixed wings, and we specialize in obviously lightweight systems. What type of payload weight are you looking at?
Yeah, so typically you're looking at somewhere around 3.5 kilograms for a good LiDAR sensor.
And on the regulatory side, how does that impact?
That's fine. I mean, we can operate drones under a permit for commercial operation without the need for any other permits or paperwork, all the way up to 20 kilos. But of course, the heavier the thing is that's up in the air, the more risk there is of it doing damage when it comes down to the ground, which with the EB, that risk is significantly reduced with its weight of, what is it, about
1.5,
2 kilos, something like that.
Always under 2, that's what we specialize in. So I think you're between 1.4 to 1.6 with the X.
Yeah. And of course, by lifting all of that extra weight, you need a bigger drone, which needs bigger batteries, which can stay in the air for less time.
Yeah. Thank you for that question.
Okay, so there's no more questions come in from the audience. So we'd just like to say thank you very much for attending this morning. We hope you found the webinar useful and informative. Do stay in touch with us. We're across all of the socials and regularly have deals and offers and show you what the EB systems are capable of. And if you do have any further questions or would like to get in touch regarding the offer that we will email out shortly, then please contact myself, richard.gorshwin@korecgroup.com. And we'd love to hear from you and see how we can help you invest in a system and start to make money from that system afterwards. Many thanks for your time today, and thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Goodbye.